Hello everybody and welcome to Tech Uploaded. I'm Chris and today we're talking $1,000 computer builds. I've been getting a lot of questions from people asking me, what kind of build should I do for $1,000? What can I get? I want something that's gaming oriented, but maybe I want to still do a little bit of productivity, maybe some Photoshop or Premiere Pro, start getting into some of the pro apps maybe a little bit, and then have something that I can grow in, something that's future-proof, which future-proofing is pretty much impossible, and if you try to build a computer around it, you're just going to disappoint yourself, but there are things you can do to help select pieces of hardware that won't be obsolete in 5 minutes. So that's kind of where you want to go, is find that middle ground, and that's what I tried to do with both of these builds. Now I have one Intel and one AMD build, both coming in right around $1,000. Now these do not include the monitor, this is just the computer, and I did not include the keyboard and mouse because you can spend anywhere from like $15 for a keyboard and mouse combo to hundreds of dollars if you get a nice mechanical keyboard and a really nice gaming mouse. So I kind of left that one up to all of you if you follow any of these builds. Now, of course, this is my opinion. This is what I would build if I had $1,000 and I was doing a system today. Now, that being said, that's today. In a couple of weeks, everything could change on the Intel side, but I'll kind of address that when I'm doing the builds and point out what I would do if I was building this in a couple of weeks. But like I said, that being said, these are my opinions, so don't think this is like the gold standard or anything. But let's take a look at what I pulled together for what I would do with $1,000. All right, first off, let's start with the Intel build. So taking a look here, I'm going to use Newegg to kind of go through each one of the products because they tend to have nice descriptions and details on each product that they sell, as well as a decent picture set. So I'm going to go that route on this one. So for both of these builds, I'm actually going to use the NZXT Source 210, and this is the one with the windowed side panel. You can get the one without the windowed side panel for a little bit less, and one thing you may want to do is consider doing the Pro version of this because it does include a USB 3.0 port on the right USB. So that's something to consider. They're all around the same price. I think the Pro is another $5. So very affordable case. Moving on. For the Intel system, I'm going to go with the Core i5 4670K. It's about $100 less than a 4770K, and if you're doing gaming, it's going to be more than enough. And this is actually the chip that gamers have heralded as like the chip to get for quite some time, pretty much since Haswell came out, and even going back to the 3670K on the Ivy Bridge side. So this has been a really hot in-demand chip for the gaming side. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this may change. There could be the 4690K very soon for the Devil's Canyon. If it's anywhere within the same price range, then obviously you'd want to go with that. And with that said, I'm going to suggest going with an Asus Z97A, simply for the fact that it's a fairly affordable Z97 motherboard at 150 bucks. You go any lower than this, you start making some pretty serious compromises, but there's very comparable boards out there from MSI and also from Gigabyte. So pretty much just look at your feature set, look at what you want to get. The reason I went with this board is you are getting a lot of connectivity on the back. You're getting 4 USB 3.0 on the back. You have the Intel LAN, which most Z97 boards do. You also have DisplayPort on this one, which is nice. And you get SATA Express. You get the M.2 and the SATA Express connection, which is really nice for a board that's priced this low. You get all of the connections and all the nice features that come along with Z97. So I think this is a pretty good bang for your buck as far as boards go. It may not be the most attractive board in the world with all that gold, but the price is right. So maybe you want to go with the case without the window on this one if you don't like that gold. All right, then for the memory, actually, I'm a big fan of this ADATA XPG V2 stuff lately. I really like it, and if you need something that's lower profile, they do make a version 1 of this that doesn't have these heatsink risers coming up off of them. These are just on here because these memory chips are known to overclock pretty well, so they have some pretty good heat dissipation built into them. Just going with your standard DDR3 1600, simply because the timings are really nice and tight on these, which is good. And, you can overclock this to 1866, no problem. Just adjust those timings a little bit, and you'll be good to go. So nice solid set, 8 gigabytes. You got the room to grow. If you want to add another 8 gigabyte kit down the road, you can go to 16 gigs, no problem. And then for the graphics card, looking at the Sapphire Radeon R9 270X. Now, some people may say, well, that's a weird choice. You got an Intel build and you're putting an AMD card in there. What's going on with that? Well, for the price, for 200 bucks, this is really hard to beat. I mean, if you go over to the NVIDIA side, you're going to be a little about 50 bucks more than this for a fairly comparable card. So for what you get, this is actually a pretty darn good deal right now. So if you can scrape up a little bit of extra money going up to like, an NVIDIA 760, which you'll see in the other build, maybe it would be a good thing, or if you can really, really get it, 770, but we're going well out of the $1,000 price range at that point. So this card fits nicely in this build as far as what we're looking for cost-wise. On the power supply, EVGA just came out with this one. This is a 750 watt power supply, and it's supposed to be pretty darn good if it's anything like the previous generation. It has a lot of different cables, a lot of inputs on it. If you scroll down here, you do get your 24 pin, you get your 2x8 pin, 4x4 for your CPU. For PCIe, you get 3x8 pin, 6x2, SATA, 9, 4-pin peripheral, 5, and 1 for floppy disk, in case you need that. So you got your Molex in there and your floppy, so you are legacy on this one if you need it, just in case. And it does have a 3-year parts and 2-year labor warranty on it. And at $89, $79 after rebate, I mean, that's a good deal for that power supply. All right, then for the hard drive, I decided to go for a Seagate hybrid drive. Now, in the perfect world, you would have a solid-state drive, like a 128 or a 240, but that's going to add, $150, $200 to the price of the build. Plus, then you'd really want to have another at least 1 terabyte drive in the system for storing all of your games and applications. So the best of both worlds is to go with one of these hybrid drives, and that's what I did here. For $96, you can do 1 terabyte if you find a little bit more money to play with, which you can do by omitting an optical drive, which we'll look at in a minute. Then you can step up to the 2 terabyte, but these drives give pretty darn good performance. You kind of get a little bit of the SSD kind of, boot times and Windows operation with these. So they're a nice middle ground if you can't afford to have 2 separate drives. And then here is the totally optional part. The case does have room for an optical drive, so if you want to spend that $20 and save yourself a little bit of a headache on having to create a bootable flash drive for installing Windows or anything like that, you can just throw $20 in the case and go with a nice Asus. This is a classic. This has been around for a while. DVD-RW. So there's that, and then of course, Windows 8.1, $99.99 for the OEM copy of this, but it is what it is. You got to have an operating system, so there's the $100. This one always pains me because I get my build ready and I think, man, I've got everything just right, and then, oh, I forgot Windows. So then you have to make a few sacrifices here to fit that in. And then, of course, if you're going to be doing any overclocking at all, and you've got a K chip, so you probably are, you can get in with a nice Evo Hyper. What is it? Hyper 212 Evo. I always get those mixed up. For $34.99, there's a rebate on it right now. So for the price, you really can't beat this cooler. To step up from here, I mean, really you're looking at doubling, if not tripling the price. So if you're going to be doing a really aggressive overclock, you may want to look at putting a little bit better cooler in there, but just know that you're probably going to add $50 to $60 to the cost of the build in order to do that. But this is a nice point of entry if you're going to do a mild to moderate overclock. You should be able to keep things cool with this as long as you take care with airflow in your case. So all that said and done, PC part picker list. Here's everything compiled, and you'll look at the bottom there, and it comes to $973.82 according to PC Part Picker. So you have a little bit of room here. I left some wiggle room in case you want to add in a cheap keyboard and mouse. And again, this doesn't include a monitor, but you can get those anywhere from like $150 and up, so that's not a huge deal. Just if you don't already have a monitor, to save a little bit more and you can get there. But yeah, the reason that I built this system the way that I did, you could have went with a little bit lower end processor and maybe a slightly cheaper motherboard, maybe go Z87, or if you don't want to overclock, you can go H97 or H87 and save some money there. But you're going to be able to grow with this system. You've got the Z97 chipset. You've got a K-series chip, so you can overclock it. If you want to get a little bit more performance down the road, put a better cooler in there, overclock it a little bit more. You've got memory that can overclock. So you've really got a computer that's fairly flexible and should be for years to come going with a build like this. The one thing that you are probably going to be upgrading first would be your graphics card. Well, you probably add a hard drive to it too. You probably put an SSD as soon as you scrape some money together, but adding an SSD, adding a better graphics card down the road, or maybe a second graphics card, I don't know, that's totally up to you, but you have the ability to do it with a build like this, so there is your Intel build. All right, so now taking a look at the AMD build, this one, if you're going to be doing streaming or you're going to be capturing game footage, this may be the better option for you. It's a little bit less future-proof, that word right there, but because the chipset and the actual CPU are pretty much done. I mean, they're at the end of their life cycle, but they're still very good value for your dollar, and you're going to actually get 8 cores with these chips as opposed to the 4 on the Intel. So if you're going to be doing any kind of streaming or capturing, that's nice because you've got a little bit of extra headroom there. And the nice part is, since the chip and motherboard are both less expensive than the Intel side, you can put a nice NVIDIA 700 series in there. So I believe this has a 760, and that's nice because you'll be able to use Shadow Play, which does a fantastic job. I've used it quite a few times. I actually use it for my screen capture. It's just a really good piece of software, and it's a nice little added benefit to the NVIDIA cards. So that being said, let's take a look at the AMD build. All right, so for the AMD build on the case, going with the same thing that I did for the Intel build, just simply, for the price, this one really is hard to beat. I actually own this case. I was using it for my home theater PC for a while before I switched over to the BitPhoenix case. All right, for the CPU on this one, we're going with the AMD FX 8320. Now, if you have an extra 40 bucks or so, you can go with the 8350, but this chip is renowned for being able to overclock right up to where the 8350 can go, if not a little bit higher. So you can save a little bit of money going this route, which is always good when we're trying to stay under that $1,000 price point. And to power that chip is going to be the Gigabyte GA990 FXA UD3. And this motherboard is actually on its 4th revision, so they've pretty much dialed in everything here on this board and got this to be rock solid. You get a lot of nice features on here for the money. It's a good overclocker, and for about 125 to 130 bucks, even less after the rebate, this is a really solid choice and something I would recommend this board actually over the Asus variety of this that cost a little bit more. All right, so for the graphics card, this is where things get a little bit interesting. You have some wiggle room on this one. We're hitting that magical $300 price point that we have to spend on graphics, and that's nice because now you can step up to some really nice options as far as that goes. You can do either a 280X from the AMD side, if that's your jam, or you could go with the 760 from NVIDIA. Now, like I said, the nice thing about the NVIDIA is you are going to get that Shadow Play functionality, which I haven't tried anything on the AMD side, but I know that particular piece of software works really well. So if you're really into streaming or game capture, this may be the card to go with. But either way, you're going to be really happy with the performance from both of these different options. So giving you a little bit of play on that one, but like I said, both good choices. And then finally, the same exact power supply again. It's SLI. It's ready to go. It's a brand new release, so new. They don't even have the image for it. So, there you go on that one. And then same again with the memory. This memory can overclock nicely to 1866. It's got good timings. It's affordable. And then the same hybrid drive. So you'll notice a lot of the parts here are carrying over from build to build. Same deal with this one. If you got a little bit of extra money to work with, go up to the 2 terabyte. If you don't, save a little bit of money. But, more storage is always better. So if you want to bump that up and you can scrape some pennies together, that's always a nice thing to be able to do. And then, of course, the optional same Asus DVD-RW drive for 20 bucks. You have the peace of mind of knowing you have an optical drive, which is always nice if you have a bay in your computer to do it. And then there's the Windows, dun dun dun, Windows 8.1, that $100 ding that you get on the system builds there for the OEM. But again, necessary evil. You got to have something to run the computer. You got to have software. And then finally, the Hyper 212 Evo. I got it right that time. Again, around 30 to 40 bucks, depending on when you buy this thing. So really nice deal. Now this system prices out very attractively. Comes out to about 939 bucks. So, 940, say roughly 940. And, that would fluctuate just a little bit depending on what you go for in your graphics solution. But the one thing I do like about this build, like I said, is it does give you the flexibility of having those 8 processor cores if you're going to be doing a lot of multitasking. This wouldn't be a real bad option if you're going to be doing a lot of exporting or rendering within Premiere. And again, if you're going to be doing stuff in Premiere, I would actually recommend that you go with that NVIDIA card as well, because you have the CUDA cores available, which Premiere Pro likes to take advantage of. So you can add a keyboard and mouse or things like that, or you can just take that $60 and bump up another component on here if you already have those parts. So there you go. There is the AMD build based off of the 8320, and another option you would have with that 60 bucks is to go up to the 8350. So there you go. Again, lots of options here, a lot of flexibility as far as what you want to do with this build, either one of them. $1,000 is a pretty nice price point to work with. You do have to make a few sacrifices here and there, mostly on the graphics front and on the case. I would, if I could scrape a little bit more money together, I would go with something like Fractal Design R4. I believe the blackout edition of that case on Newegg at least is only $89 right now. It's actually fairly cheap. And it's a much better case than the NZXT case that I selected for these builds. But again, you know, you can nickel and dime your way up to $1,500 really easily. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, there you go. You know, both have their pluses and minuses. The Intel, you've got more power per core. But with the AMD, you got more cores. So it just kind of depends on what you're going to be doing with the system and kind of what you think your needs are going to be. If you're doing heavy gaming, I would suggest go with the Intel build. If your primary focus is going to be gaming, Intel's the way to go. And if you can scrape a little bit more money together on the GPU, you could step up one generation on that and maybe try to go up to the 280 or a 760, or really, if you can really pull it off, a 770 is going to, on either one of these builds, is going to be really nice. So hopefully that addresses that question for everybody. And if you found this video helpful, you know the drill. Go ahead and click on that subscribe button. And don't be a stranger. Check back soon.